There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the NAGT webinar series. I'm so excited to have you all here with me today. Are you all seeing my screen all right? It's just the PowerPoint slide. Perfect. So, welcome. I'm Ashley. My pronouns are they, them, and I'll be your friendly neighborhood NAG support person today. And I'm super excited today for today's webinar. But first, we have to go over a few things. First, the NAGT series is a one-stop shop for increasing our community's capacity in Earth education. The webinars in our series feature novel and innovative work such as Earth education, research and pedagogy, new teaching materials in the classroom, and professional experiences of people just like you. The NAGT webinar series is free and open to the public. We often get questions about whether it's okay to invite your colleagues. Yes, please invite them. The more, the merrier. Um, and throughout the webinar, please feel free to use the chat box as a place for discussion, questions, and comments. Additionally, feel free to use the reaction tab, the cute little emojis. I'm a fan. Otherwise, in terms of interacting with each other in this shared cyberspace, please remember that we do still follow the NAGT Code of Conduct, which expects and endorses a professional and respectful atmosphere and values diversity and creating an inclusive, supportive, and collaborative environment. I'll drop that a link to the code of conduct in the chat for you to review as you have the time. But otherwise, we're ready to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Margie to introduce Kirsty Tinto to talking about exploring Antarctic science through data today.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Ashley. So I asked Ashley if I could introduce Kirsty. Kirsty's a colleague and a good friend, and I've worked with her on multiple polar projects in our time together here at Lamont. She's a glaciologist, but I always think of her as having this very strong focus on geology, probably subglacial geology if we wanted to get there. And the thing about Kirsty is that she is enthused by data in any shape or form and always willing to answer questions, help you with an inquiry. She really loves to get her hands into the data. And of course, that's what makes her the perfect person for doing today's talk. She spent an awful lot of time in Antarctica and with Antarctic science. And today she's going to introduce us to the U.S. Antarctic program. I couldn't get that out. U.S. Antarctic Program Data Center. And she's the co-investigator on that project. So I'm going to turn it right over to Kirsty.
Thank you, Margie. Thank you, Ashley. Hi, Kathy. I'm just going to share a desktop with you now so that I can start the presentation. There. Am I sharing sufficiently? Thank you. Okay, everything that Margie said was true. I am here eagerly to tell you about the U.S. Antarctic Program Data Center, the USAP-DC, and kind of try to unpack it and show you what's inside and how to navigate it so that you can get at the raw data that US-funded researchers have been sharing publicly for quite a number of decades now, that are sitting in this archive kind of ready to use in the world. So, oh, one moment. So this is the overview of what I want to do today. I want to introduce the USAP-DC, who we are, why we exist, and the basic structure of what's held at the website. I want to give you an overview of the website so that you'd be able to search for data and find out how you can see what's in there and look at either text-based or map-based searching around the website, to look at the idea of project pages, which is one of our building blocks that holds kind of the full suite of questions to answers in the investigations that have been funded and supported by the USAP. And then also the dataset pages, which is the places that you might be interested to go to download the data for yourselves and for your students to incorporate into classwork. I'm expecting that's going to take about half an hour. And then after that, I want to turn everybody loose into the webpage for a while to just see what works, what there might be that fits your interests, or what grabs you as you work around it. and be able to see, I'll show you some example data sets so you know the sort of things that you'll be looking for, and then you can explore the search functions and download some data set to see whether how you might use it so that we'll know that you have access to the whole archive. And then we'll get back together after that and just report out on what we found. So this is the USEP-DC. There are 4 of us at present. So we're a small unit, and if you need something, you can write to info@usepdc.org, and one of these people will reply to you. So we are friendly, we are humans, and we do enjoy talking about the data sets that that we have access to. So Frank, Isabel, and I have all been active in Antarctic research and are, and then Alex keeps the data center running by looking after the databases and the websites. So depending on what your question is, somebody should know the answer. And Frank and Isabel and I take it in turns to man that desk. So you'll get to talk to one of us. But what are we? USEP-DC is a repository for digital data sets. So we don't have any physical holdings. If you want to look at Antarctic rocks, you want to talk to the Polar Rock Repository in Ohio. But if you want digital data that you can download to your machine, then you probably want to talk to us. We encompass work that has been funded by the US National Science Foundation through their Office of Polar Programs. So there is other Antarctic work that happens in the US and a lot of other work that happens in the world, but we're focused on the NSF funded part of the research. We play a role for the funders and for the researchers that they have certain data obligations of making sure that the data that are gathered with taxpayers' money are made available to anybody to use as they see fit. And so we help them to do that and help to make it traceable that that has happened. We also, by being a funding pool specific archive, we're able to aggregate a larger collection. So all of the different programs that get funded through the NSF, their data all come to the same place. And so we're developing this growing archive of interconnected data sets. So it's a really nice place to explore things that have happened right next to each other and get the bigger picture of Antarctic work. And then lastly, we target our data archiving procedures towards the concept of fair data, which I'll talk about a little bit later as well. But it is a concept that is how we can best store data in what format and with what information to make it as useful for posterity as we possibly can. I wanted to just touch into, I mentioned that there was a lot of work happening internationally, and the requirement to share the data that is found through scientific research in Antarctica actually dates back to the Antarctic Treaty, which was signed in 1959. So there's a lot of countries that are involved in Antarctica in the present day, and most of them are signatories to the Antarctic Treaty. It's 29 voting nations at the moment, or there was when this text that I stole from the USAP website was written. And yeah, all of them, when they take research, when they take data, it's important to let everybody else know that those data exist and where they can find them. And so one of our roles at USEP-DC is to meet that duty for the US. And then I keep saying data, what do I mean by that? Because polar programs is very broad in its disciplines, there are a lot of different disciplines that are represented in this archive. We have glaciological data, we have meteorology, we have oceanography, we have biology, we have astronomy, we have all sorts of different investigations that are happening. Anything that has to happen on about Antarctica or that can only happen from Antarctica. So that's where the astronomical stuff comes from. Sometimes there's a lot of work that happens at the South Pole that looks up into space, and Antarctica is a great place to see that from. So a huge array of disciplines are being covered. It's Not all about wearing big coats and being cold, though. There are lab and entirely computer-based investigations that have happened totally within the States that are still really important parts of this archive. So we have model output and all sorts of other things that sort of suit every scientific taste. In terms of what kind of digital products we have, there's a big range of that as well. So a lot of it is text files, there are spreadsheets, there's spatial data, time series, there's code, pictures, video, audio. It's a whole multimedia experience of lots of different things that have come back from Antarctica or been generated from that. Furthermore, we have a lot of it that we archive ourselves, but a lot of this stuff has relevant discipline-specific archives that it's held in, and we link to those. So even if we don't hold the data from the website, you can get to them. So it's a great starting place to try to explore whatever kind of information you might be looking for. And on the left, it's a bunch of pictures of different ways that you can do Antarctic research. And so now to think a little bit about how we've structured the website, and apologize for the icon that showed up in the middle of that slide. Um, but there are three main functions to the website, and they are related to try to preserve the full life cycle of data. And the life cycle of data is from where you have a new question to ask, and you write a proposal and it gets funded. Then you can register that project so that people who are actively researching in the field can see what's happening this season or what's been recently funded. Once you get some new data, it gets deposited at the site, and then people use that to write new proposals and have fresh ideas. The way that builds into the structure of the website really builds the connections between the different parts of a project. So we have the original question, we have the abstract for the proposal that got funded, this is important to know, and this is how we're going to find it out, and these are the data that we're going to produce. In the same places, we've got the publications that came from the end of that work. Here's what we know now. And then the data sets that are required to replicate the work that, that is in those publications. So we have the full suite, and we're going to be exploring all of them. So first we'll look at the search function. And as I said before, that's got a text-based element, maybe if you know exactly what it is that you're looking for, or a map-based element if you want to explore a little bit more what might be around. We have what we call project pages. So those are the overview of an individual investigation. So all of the data, all of the publications, all of the framing of one project that was awarded. This is really helpful because it pulls together different data sets that are maybe from connected inquiries, but not exactly the same thing. There's often many different pieces to a project. So at least you can find out how they were related to each other. And that brings us to the data set pages. So that's a separate element of the website. I mentioned FAIR data here again, so I'll just go through it another time. FAIR is an acronym, and the first part of it is findable. And that's sort of what we're here for today, is to say all of these people are doing this research and generating data in the hope that those data will be findable and will be used by future researchers. And if we can get them into classrooms, then that's the first step of developing the future researchers who will carry on this work. Once you've found it, once you know that it exists, the next step is to be accessible. And that means that you can get to it, that you can download it, and that you can open the file, that it isn't some proprietary format that I need to have a $10,000 license for something to look at, that it's accessible and that anybody can use it if they wish. And then interoperable is really for efficiency. We focus on ways that we can get computers to automatically do analyses or access the data or read things in a very uniform way. That can be a challenge at the USEP DC because we have so many unique data sets that just don't have those procedures built up around them. So we're working on some of the areas of this, but findable and accessible, we've made a lot of good progress on. And then reusable is the next step. You need to know enough about the data set to be able to understand it, to be able to plot it up meaningfully, to be able to make inquiries about it. And so that's really the goal of what we're trying to do when we're storing these data. This is the web address. If you would like to go there now on your own machines, it's www.usap-dc.org. I still have two more sections that I'm going to go through to show you how to find your way around those different pages and some of the example data sets. But if you wanted to be watching along with me live, then you'd be most welcome to, but you'll get your own time to dive into it once I've finished with what I'm showing. So if you prefer to do one thing at a time, stay with me on the slides. But if you just can't wait to dive into the website, www.usap-dc.org. And these are the three main functions of that. So the first thing that I find to be the funnest thing, particularly, sometimes we give this webinar for the researchers who are trying to figure out how to upload their data, and it's a slightly different animal, but for this process of hoping that the data will come out and go into the world, the search function is really the most exciting one. So we have, if you hit the search button on the left here, you should get to a page that looks a lot like this. There's different ways that you can search depending on if you know exactly what it is that you're trying to find, or if you're still in the exploring phase of trying to figure out what holdings exist in here. So the example on the right here is just searching for penguins. What do we know about penguins? Why wouldn't you search for that in an Antarctic data center? And if you hit search, then you get a whole list of all of the projects and all of the data sets that have been lodged that have anything to do with penguins, which includes some software that's called Penguin, just to be clickbait. But it worked on me. Well, I'll go back one. You can also, in this rather discrete button down here, you can hit that you want to view those results on the map. And I think this is really worth doing. I love playing in here. So it should open up a map like this that you can browse around, you can zoom in, you can zoom out, you can explore around Antarctica if you want to. It shows you all of the projects or data sets that have lit up according to your inquiry. So you can just see everything that's in there if you want to. And each of those is a dot, and each of those is clickable on so that you can see what they're talking about. It's also got this nice menu on the left-hand side where you can turn on other repositories. So other data sets that exist outside USEP-DC, you can still see where they are and where they're located about the continent. And you can turn on other data sets to see the locations of studies in context of different features about Antarctica. So this one that I've turned on here is the bed topography. And you can see who's been working in the mountains and who's been working in the ocean, and you can kind of rove around and see the different parts of the continent that have been studied. And then this is ice velocity, which is also, I can't zoom in on the PowerPoint at the minute, but I would if I were you, so that you can go in and you can see all the individual ice streams and the context of all the data that have been acquired around there. So you could spend some time just exploring the search function and seeing the extraordinary breadth of data that have been collected through the Antarctic program. If you picked a data set that you particularly liked, you could click on it as one of these red dots, and it would tell you the title, it would tell you the creators, and then you could click on more info, and it would bring you deeper into the website and into the archive. So I've started here with the project page for that particular example of a data set. And this might be a little more information that you need to know right now, but it's nice to know how to navigate these pages. So we'll tell you the title of the project and an abstract that gives you the overview of what the intent of the program that gathered these data were. There's also a location map for more precisely where these data came from, and you can zoom in and out of that one as well, so you can see it in whichever context you want to see. It tells you who was working on the grant, what awards they came from. It links out to the international directory of metadata so that we're connected in with everywhere in Antarctica. A thing that I particularly enjoy is these publications down at the bottom. These get automatically updated. So any publication, a peer-reviewed publication that cites one of these award numbers gets added to this list. So you can see all the things that have been found out from a single award. I did that too quickly, but you can see the list of data sets. That's all the data from this award here. Make that a little bit bigger. And this is a good mixture of outside repositories that you would click on and it'll bring you to a different website, but you'll be able to get at those data. Internal data holdings, so click on that one and we'll be able to get it from the USAP DC. And also there's a project website that this project maintains and it's possible to get there from this section as well. If you click on one of those dataset links, then you get onto the dataset page. So we started from search, then we looked at the overall project, and now we're in at a specific dataset. For it has its own title, it has its own digital identifier and citation, so you get to attribute to the authors who created these data, get credit when the data are used by somebody else. There's an abstract describing these data specifically and a license that explains most of the data that we have here is for public reuse for any purposes, but if you attribute the authors. So that's why we have the citation up at the top, but it's free for anybody to use in whatever way they see fit. There's a link back to the project page, which is useful, but then I zoom in again on how you actually get at the data, which is the blue buttons down at the bottom of the page. And so here, one thing that's extremely useful is that every data set has a README, so a text file that describes what is this data set, what are the variables, what is the format, how was it acquired, all the things that you would need to know if you wanted to be able to look at the data or reuse the data or use them in your own inquiries. You can hit the view button here and you see that without even having to download it. It's a really useful way of finding out, is this the data set that I want? Does this meet the investigation that I want to do? There's also often a little preview button down here. This works for text files and it works for image files. So before you have to download the whole data set, you can have a peek at it. And is this the thing that I want? Am I going to be able to open this? Just let's have a look before I fill up my computer with a million data files. In order to download the data set, usually you just have to press the word download and don't be a robot. We have a CAPTCHA that you just have to prove that you're not a robot by finding zebra crossings or fire hydrants or whatever it is. But you don't have to do anything complicated at all. You just press the button and then it's going to download to your machine. That is true for what we consider to be the smaller data sets, and that's anything smaller than about 5 gigabytes. Once you get to gigabyte scale, we don't serve them directly, and so it says request the data download, which means you press that button and it sends us an email saying, can I please have access to those data? Don't be shy about this. If you want the data, that's what the data are for. And so we'll get that email. It'll be one of those humans that I showed you at the start, and we'll make sure that the larger data set that we hold on site here is put up into somewhere that you can download it from. So it usually takes a day or so to get that posted. If it's a really giant data set, it might take longer to get it accessible to you, but don't be afraid to ask. And if you're not sure if you want the whole data set or if there's a particular thing you're looking for, absolutely explain that in your email and we'll be happy to talk it through with you and see what you need. And then you can always, when you find a data set, you can link back to the project page. you'll find a whole load of other data sets that you want to see, and the adventure will keep going. I am imagining that you might want to do this to find the data that are going to go into classroom activities. It can also be something that you could set students on. This is an investigation in itself, to use the data center as the field area and find out what information can be recovered from it. So I'm going to show you a few examples of some of the holdings that we have. When I've done that, I'm going to turn everybody loose for 10 or 15 minutes. And the goal will be to look for data using the map and the text search to be able to see how to find like which publications come from a particular award, and then which data sets are connected with those, and then to find a data set that you like and download it. So we're going to get a big spike in downloads today, I hope. But I'll come back to this slide again before everybody gets sent away. And of course, if there are questions, either before we all go into our own inquiries, or if you run into any roadblocks along the way as you're trying to access things, I will be here hoping very much to solve those. Also, I know that Isabel, who I showed in about slide 2, is in the room and she can help too. So this was an example. I wanted to show some of the different disciplines that we have in the archive, and I wanted to show some of the different file formats, like what you think of as data and how that might fit into different kinds of projects or work to be done. This is a project associated with the Thwaites Glacier project that has a lot of different projects involved in it. I'm going to turn on the video. It's a video time series of satellite imagery. That's what you see on the right. And then there have been quantitative analyses on those images that tell you all different properties of the ice shelves. So how quickly it moves, what kind of strain it's under. There are mathematical operations to be had here, and there's great video to give you a good intuitive sense of how ice flows. And I really like this as an example of a spatial time series from the glaciological world. I am not a biologist, and so I was particularly intrigued when this one came in. It's another video. This is MRI scans of Antarctic fish, and they've been used to reconstruct models of the fish and to understand things about their ways of life. There's a lot of different data sets that are within this single data set. A data set isn't just one file. It's a lot of connected different pieces. But it's really amazing to get this insight into a different facet of Antarctic science. So I wanted you to know that there's things like this lurking in this archive. Another one that I pulled out because it's got a really good span of data types. It's an oceanographic project. This was modeling the tides around Antarctica. And you can see on the left here, this is the project page, and there's a lot of different data sets associated with them. One of them was this tide gauge database, which included a KML file that I could open in Google Earth, which is what I've done here. So that was just download the file and click on it. And I got this way of exploring all the different tide measurements that have been made around Antarctica. A great way of exploring Antarctica, a great way of thinking about how tides are different and getting quite an easy access way into the spatial data. The product of the tidal simulations, the model that was run here. So that these are maps of some field data. In the center, there are model products. And for these, they're netcdf files. So I dropped them into QGIS, which is a free GIS program that usually takes quite a lot of data types without fuss. and I was able to drop them straight in here and get to visualize the model outputs. There's also links to the code that was used from this. So if people are interested in actually implementing the code and learning about the tides around Antarctica, there's lots of different data products that were included in this particular project. And then lastly, I also pulled out this record, which in our terms is one of the older ones. It's from about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more. But it was nice because this is ice core data looking at CO2 history in different ice cores around Antarctica. It's available just as an Excel spreadsheet. So it's a great one for just plotting something, seeing the data with your own eyes. I was pleased to be able to find this. And some of the data that we have come from different archives as things shift over into different people's responsibility. So this is one of the ones that was originally somewhere else, but has a home at USAP DC now. So there's quite a breadth of disciplines, quite a breadth of data types. It is my hope that this has been enough of an introduction to the website that you might be able to go in and see if it works for you pursuing your own inquiries, or seeing the sort of data types that you might need in a class. No, I'm not gonna stop the share, but I am gonna look to Margie and say, I think I've been seeing things in the chat. Is this a good time to have questions? Are there questions?
Yeah, if there are questions before people launch in, I think this would be a great time to capture them. And I know Isabel's been answering some in the
Oh,
chat.
thank you, Isabel. I think I have. I'm not going to stop my share just yet. Any in-person questions right now? Isabel has been in it. In that case, it's 3:33. I propose that for the next, let's see, we'll go until about 3:45. Feel free to work through the website and see what interests you or might be useful to you. And if you run into any roadblocks, or if you have any questions or anything that you're particularly interested in, I will be here to talk live if you raise your hand, or if you have questions in the chat. Isabel's going to catch that. And then we can all regroup at 3:45 and see what data sets were findable. But first of all, Suzanne O'Connell, would you like to unmute and
Yes, I
contribute?
just went to the website, and do we have to log in to and have a username and all of that to play with this data?
Not to download any of the data. There's a login for people who are contributing data, but there should not be a login required to search and access data. Did you hit a page that asked you to log in?
Just the first page says log in, so I wasn't sure before I started.
Oh, interesting. So on the very first page of usapdc.org,
Yes,
right?
on the upper right-hand corner.
Well, in that case,
At least it did for me. Let me go check again.
Oh, it will automatically say login on the toolbar. It's not a requirement.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Thank you.
No worries.
thank you, Isabel. That was exactly the right question to ask at the right time.
And Isabel, thank you for putting those links to the data sets that Kirsty showed, so people can pop right there if they wanted to maybe look more at fish and all or penguin.
Yeah, very welcome. One thing I think Kirsty touched on as well, if you're on any of those links for the data sets, there are keywords attached to them, and all of those keywords are also search functions. So if you click on a keyword, it'll open up the search function with that keyword already pre-filtered. So you can look more at what you want to look at that way as well.